Ancient builders across the globe shared a secret language written in stone. From the pyramids of Egypt to the temples of Cambodia, a hidden code of geometry connects these sites, suggesting a knowledge that spanned continents and millennia. By the end of this journey, you will see the ancient world through an entirely new lens, one that reveals a stunning, interconnected past. We will uncover why isolated cultures built with the same sacred ratios and how their structures align with the stars. What does this hidden mathematical thread tell you about our shared human story? That perfect circle drawn in the sand represents more than just a shape. It is a window into a universal code. This is sacred geometry, a timeless language of patterns and proportions that nature itself speaks. It is the spiral of a galaxy and the branching of a tree, the hexagonal honeycomb and the swirling eye of a storm. Ancient philosophers, from Plato in the West to sages in the East, perceived these recurring forms not as random accidents, but as the fundamental building blocks of reality. They believed that by constructing their temples and monuments using these same divine ratios, they could create spaces that resonated with the harmony of the cosmos itself. They employed constants like the golden ratio, a proportion of about 1.618 that appears endlessly in nature, from the arrangement of petals on a rose to the spiral of a nautilus shell. They used pi, the unchanging relationship between a circle's circumference and its diameter. This shared vocabulary of shape and number raises a profound question. How could cultures separated by vast oceans and thousands of years, from the Maya in Central America to the builders of Angkor Wat in Cambodia, all arrive at the same mathematical blueprint for the sacred? The answer begins to take shape not in a grand city, but in a solitary, windswept plateau in the Egyptian desert. Rising from the desert sands, the Great Pyramid of Giza presents a geometry of impossible perfection. Its base forms a near-perfect square, and its four triangular faces are aligned with the four cardinal directions with an accuracy that seems to defy the tools of its time. Constructed over 4,000 years ago, this monument is a masterclass in applied sacred geometry. The ratio of its height to its base perimeter is a close approximation of the golden ratio, that divine proportion of 1.618 found throughout the natural world. Even more astonishing, if you take the perimeter of its base and divide it by twice its height, the result is a number incredibly close to pi, the fundamental constant of a circle. This means the builders encoded the mathematics of both a circle and a rectangle into a single, soaring pyramid. How did they achieve this? The Greek historian Herodotus wrote of intricate machines and ramps used in its construction, yet the sheer precision of its angles and alignments continues to spark debate. Its layout on the ground mirrors the three stars of Orion's belt, anchoring it to the heavens, while the proportions of its internal chambers and passages resonate with the Fibonacci sequence, a pattern of growth found in sunflowers and spiral galaxies. To stand before this structure is to confront a profound mystery. How could an ancient culture with what we consider primitive technology achieve such a flawless fusion of earth and sky, mathematics and myth? This is not merely a tomb, it is a stone declaration of a universal language, one whose echoes we will now trace across the world. Across the sea, on the misty Salisbury plain of England, another riddle stands in stone. The great circles of Stonehenge have guarded their secrets for millennia. Constructed over centuries, beginning around 5,000 years ago, this monument is far more than a ring of towering rocks. Its concentric circles and inner horseshoe of trilithons, those iconic three-stone gateways, are a complex exercise in Neolithic geometry. Researchers have found that the shapes formed by these massive structures encode principles like the Pythagorean theorem, a cornerstone of geometry, long before the Greeks formally named it. Each massive lintel stone was carefully shaped, with subtle curves that follow the circumference of the circle, and joined using sophisticated tongue and groove joints that demanded an advanced understanding of angles and measurement. This precision served a higher purpose, harmonizing the entire structure with the cosmos. The famous heel stone, positioned outside the main circle, creates a perfect sight line for the rising sun on the summer solstice. On that longest day, the sun climbs directly over the stone, flooding the center of the monument with light. This alignment reveals a people who used the perfect geometry of the circle to track the majestic, predictable cycles of the heavens. How did a society without written records achieve such astronomical and mathematical accuracy? The silent stones offer no easy answers, only a profound testament to a shared impulse to build in concert with the universe, a thread we will follow to the mountaintops of Peru. The quest for geometric perfection finds another voice high upon the Acropolis in Athens. Here, the Parthenon stands not merely as a ruin, but as a lasting lesson in harmonic design. Constructed in the 5th century before the Common Era, this temple to the goddess Athena was the work of architects Iktinos and Callicrates, who sought to build a structure that felt perfectly alive. They achieved this through a masterful application of the golden rectangle, a shape whose proportions are approximately 1 to 1.618. The entire facade of the building fits neatly within this revered rectangle, a shape celebrated for its inherent balance and beauty, but the geometry runs far deeper than its outline. Every dimension of the Parthenon seems governed by the ratio of 4 to 9. The width of the building to its height, the space between its majestic columns, even the relationship of a column's diameter to the gap beside it, all adhere to this precise mathematical relationship. This created a rhythm and a visual harmony that the human eye finds instinctively pleasing. The builders even employed a subtle trick of the eye known as entoses. Each column swells almost imperceptibly in the middle, counteracting the optical illusion that would make straight columns appear to bend inward. This curvature was not random but calculated, ensuring the entire structure appeared perfectly straight and robust from every angle. The Roman historian Vitruvius would later codify these principles, describing how Greek architecture used mathematical ratios to achieve both beauty, or venustas, and strength, or fermitas. How is it that these same principles of proportion, this shared language of sacred geometry, appear so vividly in the temple architecture of India, worlds away from the Greek peninsula? The humid Cambodian air carries whispers of a celestial city. Angkor Wat, rising from the jungle in the 12th century, was built as a terrestrial home for the gods, a monumental echo of the mythical Mount Meru. Its entire design is a vast mandala, a sacred geometric pattern representing the cosmos itself. Concentric galleries and 5 majestic towers are arranged not at random, but in a precise, symbolic diagram of the universe. As you walk its processional causeways, you are tracing the lines of a cosmic map. This spiritual intent was grounded in astonishing mathematical precision. The temple's base dimensions form a perfect 3-4-5 Pythagorean triangle, a set of whole numbers that guarantees a perfect right angle, ensuring both structural stability and profound symbolic harmony. This same principle, known thousands of miles away, was used here to anchor a vision of heaven on earth. The alignment goes beyond the ground. During the equinoxes, the sun rises directly over the central tower, a breathtaking demonstration of how the temple's axes were locked into the solar cycle. Even the proportions of the central tower's height to the surrounding moat's width follow ratios that feel strangely familiar, echoing the same relationships we have seen in the Great Pyramid and the Parthenon. Here, in the heart of Southeast Asia, spirituality and mathematics fuse into a single language of stone, a universal pursuit of cosmic order. This same pursuit was unfolding simultaneously in a completely isolated culture on the other side of the world, where a different people were building their own mountains to the sky. The ancient builders of Teotihuacan laid out their city with a celestial ruler. The vast avenue of the dead cuts a straight path through the silent metropolis, leading the eye directly to the colossal Pyramid of the Sun. Constructed around 200 years into the Common Era, this mountain of stone is a masterwork of quadratic geometry, its base forming a near-perfect square aligned with remarkable precision to the movements of the stars. The entire city functions as a massive astronomical instrument, its grid of streets and structures positioned to capture the setting of the Pleiades star cluster on key dates, weaving the cosmos directly into the urban fabric. But the mathematical genius is most stunning in the pyramid itself. Archaeologists have calculated that the perimeter of its base is equal to the circumference of a circle whose radius is the pyramid's height. This is the constant pi, seamlessly integrated into a monumental structure, echoing the very same mathematical principle encoded in the Great Pyramid of Giza half a world away. From an aerial view, the geometry deepens. The placement of the Pyramid of the Moon at the northern end of the avenue creates precise isosceles triangles with other major structures, a network of perfect angles and balanced lines etched into the earth. This is not haphazard construction. It is a deliberate design of spatial harmony, a sacred blueprint that resonates with the same advanced understanding we have witnessed in Egypt and Cambodia. How could such specific knowledge appear again in a culture separated by an ocean? The pattern is now undeniable, a global thread of geometric language pulling us further south to the mysteries of the Andes. High in the cloud forest, the stones of Machu Picchu cling to the mountain ridge. This 15th century citadel of the Inca Empire was not built upon the land but woven into it. Its retaining walls and agricultural terraces curve and step in perfect harmony with the natural contours, a breathtaking demonstration of geometry in service of both engineering and reverence. The Incas possessed an intuitive mastery of form, most evident in their prolific use of the trapezoid. Doorways, windows, and niches are not simple rectangles, but trapezoidal shapes, wider at the base and narrowing toward the top. This was far more than an aesthetic choice. This specific angle distributes the immense weight of the stone structures downward and outward, making them incredibly resilient to the frequent earthquakes that shake the Andes. It is a practical solution written in stone, a geometry of survival, but the sacred dimension is never far away. The trapezoidal window of the Temple of the Sun, for instance, is precisely aligned to frame the rising sun during the June solstice, casting a specific beam of light into the chamber's interior. This fusion of the pragmatic and the spiritual extended to their very system of measurement. Inca architects used a unit based on the human body, a standard that naturally incorporated the golden ratio into the proportions of their most important temples. The result is a space that feels inherently balanced and harmonious to us, even today. Spanish chroniclers who witnessed the empire in its final days wrote with astonishment of the Inca's stonework. They described how massive blocks were cut with such angular precision that they locked together without any mortar, the joints between them so tight that not even a knife blade could slip through. This technique, known as ashlar masonry, created walls that could dance during a tremor and then settle back into place completely intact. The ultimate expression of this celestial geometry is the Intihuatana stone, an intricately carved ritual stone. Its angles are not arbitrary. They are precisely calibrated to point toward the sun's position during the solstices, a solid stone computer tracking the passage of time. Here, geometry was the language used to converse with the mountains and the sky. How could such a similar conversation be happening at nearly the same time within the ornate temples of India? Their silent gaze holds a secret written in stone. On the remote shores of Easter Island, the Moai stand as colossal sentinels, carved from volcanic rock between the 13th and 16th centuries. These towering figures are not simply massive rocks, they are masterpieces of proportion. Their elongated heads and strong brows were carved according to a consistent geometric ratio, with the height of the head to the total body height following a specific harmonious division. This same attention to balance is found in the length of their ears, a proportion that uncannily mirrors the ideal forms celebrated in classical Greek sculpture, a world away. How did this isolated Polynesian culture, living on the most secluded inhabited island on Earth, develop and adhere to such a precise and universal standard of beauty? The answer lies not just in the statues themselves, but in their placement. Each moai was erected upon a stone platform known as an ahu. These ahu are far more than simple bases. Their foundations often form perfect, sweeping curves. The precision of these arcs is so exact that researchers suggest the builders must have used a form of giant compass, a rope anchored to a central point, to lay out these graceful lines with mathematical accuracy. This implies a sophisticated understanding of circular geometry. Some of these platforms and the lines of statues upon them are also aligned with celestial events, such as the rising and setting of the sun at the solstices, turning the entire coastline into a vast astronomical observatory. The creation of these giants was a monumental feat of engineering and artistry. Using harder stone tools, the carvers would first rough out the statue's form directly in the quarry, then painstakingly refine its features before transporting it, possibly in an upright position, to its final coastal home. This entire process, from quarry to platform, required a shared communal knowledge of mathematics, engineering, and a deep, symbolic language of form. The very existence of the moai on their perfect arcs suggests that this geometric tradition was not born in isolation, but was part of a wider knowledge carried across the vast Pacific. This leads us to the master navigators who used the stars and the waves to connect a world of islands, weaving a web of shared understanding across the ocean. The silent moai of Easter Island speak of a knowledge carried across the ocean, a tradition of proportion and alignment that finds a thunderous echo in the jungles of Mexico. At Chichen Itza, the Maya built a stone calendar that still marks the passage of time. The Great Pyramid, known as El Castillo, rises in 9-step terraces, a monument to astronomical precision constructed around 1,000 years into the Common Era. Its 4 stairways, each with 91 steps, combine with a single step of the top platform to create a total of 365, a perfect representation of the solar year etched into the very stone you would climb. This is sacred geometry made tangible, a mathematical model of the cosmos you can walk upon. But the genius of the Maya architects reveals itself most dramatically during the equinoxes. As the sun sets on those 2 days of perfect balance, the play of light and shadow across the stepped corner of the pyramid creates a stunning illusion. A series of 7 triangles of shadow slither down the northern staircase, connecting with the great stone serpent heads at the base to form the undulating body of a diamond-backed rattlesnake. This effect, the descent of the feathered serpent god Kukulkan, is no accident of nature. It is the result of meticulous angular calculations, a precise understanding of the sun's changing path through the year, engineered directly into the pyramid's orientation and the exact angle of its balustrades. The Maya possessed a mathematical language sophisticated enough to conceive of the number zero, a concept absent in many contemporary European societies, and their codices are filled with complex calculations for planetary cycles. They applied this advanced knowledge to build a structure that is both a temple and a celestial clock. Nearby, the Temple of the Warriors reinforces this theme with its forest of columns arranged in precise geometric grids, patterns of squares, and rows that feel strangely familiar, echoing the organized layouts we have seen in distant cultures. How did such specific ideas of sacred geometry and urban planning permeate across the vast and varied landscapes of the Americas? The answer may lie not only in the grand stone cities of the South, but in the massive earthworks shaped by the hands of ancient peoples far to the north. Far to the north, another civilization was sculpting the earth itself according to a cosmic blueprint. The great city of Cahokia, flourishing along the Mississippi River 1,000 years ago, centered around a colossal earthen pyramid now known as Monk's Mound. This was not a structure of quarried stone, but of meticulously packed soil, rising in 4 terraces to dominate the landscape. The base of this immense platform forms a rectangle whose sides align with the cardinal directions, and its proportions, when measured, come remarkably close to that universal signature, the golden ratio of 1 to 1.618. This was a deliberate act of design, a conscious choice to build harmony into the very land. The city's layout was a vast geometric diagram. Plazas and over 100 smaller mounds were arranged in concentric circles and perfect squares, a terrestrial map of a celestial order. At the heart of this plan, the Grand Plaza's dimensions are thought by researchers to encode the cycles of the moon through their proportional relationships, turning a public space into a silent calendar. Surrounding this urban center were what archaeologists call woodhenges, great circles of towering wooden posts. These were not mere fences. They functioned as sophisticated astronomical instruments. Specific posts created precise sight lines to mark the rising sun on the solstices and equinoxes, proving that the builders of Cahokia used the pure geometry of the circle to track and celebrate the cycles of the cosmos. Here in the soil of North America, we find the same sacred principles we witnessed in stone across the globe, a parallel tradition of earth-based geometry. This profound connection compels us to look even further, to the monumental achievements of another continent, where ancient builders left their own indelible mark. The stone walls of Great Zimbabwe curve against the African sky, a masterpiece of elliptical geometry built without mortar. Between the 11th and 15th centuries, a civilization flourished here, constructing a city whose very layout speaks a sophisticated mathematical language. Its most stunning feature is the great enclosure, defined by a massive wall that sweeps in a perfect, continuous curve. This wall maintains a consistent thickness along its entire length, a feat that suggests the builders used a fixed compass point and a rope to trace its graceful arc onto the earth. This is not haphazard stonework. It is a deliberate application of circular geometry and proportional scaling, principles that allowed them to replicate perfect curves on a monumental scale. Inside this sacred space stands a mysterious conical tower, its solid form echoing the shape of a traditional grain bin, yet its proportions may hold a deeper secret. The relationship between its height and its base appears to follow harmonic principles, a subtle echo of the proportional systems used in the pyramids of Egypt. Even the smaller artifacts whisper of a shared visual language. Intricately carved soapstone birds and bowls display precise geometric patterns, chevrons and spirals that feel strangely familiar, resonating with symbols found in cultures across the globe. Researchers studying the site's orientation proposed that the entire city was laid out as a celestial map. Key structures align with the rising and setting of specific stars and constellations, suggesting the builders used angular measurements not just for navigation across the seas, but for spiritual navigation, connecting their earthly kingdom to the cosmos. How did this knowledge manifest so clearly in the heart of southern Africa? The geometric thread now pulls us toward the arid landscapes of the Middle East, where another ancient culture was encoding its own cosmic wisdom into the desert floor. The desert canyon of Petra guards a secret not of stone but of light and shadow. Carved directly into the rose-red cliffs around 300 years before the Common Era, the city's most famous structure, the Treasury, is a symphony in stone. Its magnificent facade, while echoing Hellenistic styles, is built upon a foundation of pure geometry. The relationship between the width of its columns and the height of its central pediment follows the golden section, that divine proportion of 1 to 1.618, creating a visual harmony that feels instinctively perfect to the human eye. This was no mere imitation of foreign styles. The Nabatean architects were master synthesizers, blending imported classical principles with their own profound understanding of the desert environment. They engineered the entire city to interact with the sun. Specific tombs and temples were oriented so that on significant days, like the solstices, beams of light would penetrate deep into inner chambers, illuminating sacred spaces in a dramatic display of celestial timing. This required a sophisticated knowledge of solar angles and trajectories, a living geometry written in sunlight. Their genius extended far beyond the monumental. The entire city was sustained by an intricate network of water channels and cisterns. These conduits were carved with precise gradients and angles, a practical application of geometry that ensured every drop of precious water flowed exactly where it was needed, defying the arid climate. Walking through the narrow Sick Canyon towards the Street of Facades, you are surrounded by rows of tombs whose entrances are carved in perfect, repetitive patterns. This love of symmetry and order is etched into the very rock face, revealing a culture that valued geometric harmony as a fundamental principle of beauty and structure. How did such specific design principles reach this remote desert kingdom? Petra was a crucial nexus on the ancient trade routes, a crossroads where caravans from Egypt, Greece, Persia, and beyond exchanged not only goods but ideas. It was through these vibrant channels of commerce and communication that the language of sacred geometry spread, carried by merchants and artisans across continents. This flow of knowledge did not stop in the Middle East. It traveled further east along the Silk Road, reaching ancient Asian centers of learning where it would merge with local traditions to create new wonders of mathematical architecture. A gentle ascent up the stone terraces of Borobudur is a walk through a cosmic diagram. This 9th century Buddhist monument in Java is not merely a temple, it is a three-dimensional mandala, a sacred map of the universe guiding pilgrims from the world of desire to the realm of enlightenment. Its design is a profound geometric journey, beginning with 5 massive square terraces that represent the earthly plane. These then transition seamlessly into 3 perfectly circular platforms, symbolizing the formless spiritual world. This shift from the square to the circle is a visual and philosophical statement, moving from the defined to the infinite. The dimensions of these terraces are not arbitrary. Their proportions are governed by precise mathematical ratios, including 1 to the square root of 2, a relationship that creates a naturally balanced and harmonious progression upward. This is sacred geometry as a spiritual staircase. The path is lined with over 2,000 intricately carved relief panels, depicting stories from the life of the Buddha. Yet even these narratives are framed by geometric motifs, endless knots, lotus flowers in perfect radial symmetry, and the 8-spoked Dharma wheels, all symbols of cosmic order expressed through mathematical precision. The entire structure is a lesson in stone where every angle and measurement carries meaning. Scholars studying the site have found that its alignment is no accident. The temple's central axis was carefully positioned using principles of triangulation, sighting on distant mountains and specific stars to anchor this spiritual diagram to the physical and celestial landscape. This ensured the monument was not just a representation of the cosmos, but an active participant within it. At the very summit sits the grand central stupa, a massive bell-shaped dome. Its proportions are not unique to Java. They precisely mirror the design of early Buddhist prayer halls or viharas found in India. This reveals a shared architectural vocabulary, a consistent language of sacred geometry that traveled with Buddhist teachings across Asia. This shared language of form and spirit invites a compelling question. How does this monumental expression of Buddhist geometry compare to the sacred architecture emerging at the very same time, thousands of miles away in the misty highlands of Tibet? The Temple of Heaven in Beijing offers a vision of cosmic harmony frozen in wood and tile. Constructed in the 15th century, its most iconic structure, the Hall of Prayer for Good Harvests, stands as a perfect architectural statement. A circular wooden hall rises majestically upon a 3-tiered marble square base, a direct representation of the ancient Chinese belief in a round heaven embracing a square earth. This union of circle and square is the fundamental geometry of the universe made manifest. The building's magnificent triple-eaved blue roof is a study in concentric perfection, its layers of eaves and supporting brackets radiating outward with flawless radial symmetry, like ripples expanding across the surface of a still pond. Every dimension is a number with purpose. The 4 central pillars represent the 4 seasons, the 12 inner pillars symbolize the months of the year, and the 12 outer pillars stand for the 12 two-hour periods of the day. This is numerology woven directly into the structural geometry, a coded calendar built into the very pillars that hold the roof aloft. Historical accounts from the Ming and Qing dynasties detail the solemn rituals performed here by the emperor, who acted as the intermediary between heaven and earth. These ceremonies demanded absolute precision, using ancient instruments like the compass for direction and the gnomon for tracking the sun's shadow. Court astronomers ensured the emperor faced the correct celestial orientation, his every movement and prayer aligned with the geometric axis of the cosmos. The entire surrounding park is an extension of this sacred math. The circular mound altar and the imperial vault of heaven are positioned along a central north-south axis, their placements and the steps leading to them corresponding to the divisions of the seasons and the cycles of the heavens, a sprawling landscape of angular geometry designed to synchronize human activity with the universe. Here, cosmology and mathematics were not separate disciplines, but a single language for speaking with the divine. This profound fusion of form and spirit, so clearly articulated in China, finds a distinct and powerful echo in the sacred architecture of Japan. The wooden pagoda of Horyuji Temple rises with a serene and perfect grace. Constructed in the 7th century, this ancient Japanese structure is a lesson in sacred mathematics carved from cypress wood. Its 5 stories do not simply shrink as they ascend, they taper according to a precise, fixed ratio. Each level is a fraction smaller than the one below it, creating a profile of such elegant proportion that the entire building feels both grounded and weightless, an architectural whisper reaching for the heavens. This is not a random aesthetic choice. It is a deliberate application of harmonic scaling, a geometric principle that ensures every part of the pagoda relates to the whole in perfect visual balance. The entire temple complex is laid out as a 3-dimensional mandala. its main halls and gates positioned on a strict geometric grid that maps the Buddhist cosmos onto the earth. This sacred blueprint guided the placement of every building, turning a walk through the grounds into a spiritual journey across a cosmic diagram. The artisans who built Horyuji worked with a unit of measurement called the ken, a module based on the proportions of the human body. This ensured that every doorway, every eave, and every room felt inherently harmonious to the people who used them, a concept strikingly similar to the ideal human proportions used by the Greeks in their own temples. Even the stability of the structure was a triumph of geometry. The steep angles of the iconic roofs were framed using the robust 3-4-5 Pythagorean triangle, a set of whole numbers that guarantees a perfect right angle, locking the heavy tile roofs into a state of immutable balance, resilient against earthquakes and centuries of harsh weather. How did these principles endure for over 1,000 years? The answer lies in the unwavering dedication of master builders who passed down their geometric knowledge through generations, not just as construction techniques, but as a sacred trust. This living tradition of sacred geometry, so carefully preserved in Japan, was also being meticulously studied and replicated far to the west, in the great monastic libraries and stone quarries of medieval Europe. Light streams through the rose windows of Chartres Cathedral, painting the stone floor with sacred geometry. Constructed in the 12th century, this Gothic masterpiece is far more than a place of worship. It is a three-dimensional textbook of universal mathematics. The master masons who raised its soaring vaults were not merely builders, they were geometers, applying principles from the ancient world to achieve both structural lightness and profound spiritual elevation. The very shape of the pointed Gothic arch, for instance, is born from the vesica piscis, a fundamental form created by the intersection of two circles of the same radius. This almond-shaped figure, seen in the majestic west rose window, was considered a symbol of divine intersection, the meeting point of heaven and earth. The proportions of the entire cathedral are governed by the square root of 2, a ratio that creates a naturally dynamic and expanding harmony, pulling the eye ever upward. This is not random beauty, it is calculated wonder. Historical manuscripts and the stones themselves reveal that the cathedral's layout was precisely aligned using triangulation, a method of angular measurement that ensured specific windows would be flooded with light on saints' days or solar events, turning the entire building into a calibrated instrument of light. Perhaps the most intimate geometric prayer is found underfoot. The Great Floor Labyrinth, a single winding path nearly 300 meters long, is not a maze but a meditative journey. Its path length relates to the cathedral's core dimensions through harmonic ratios, a physical echo of the building's mathematical soul. Here, in this heart of medieval Christianity, we see the same universal language of form and number that animated temples in India and pyramids in Egypt. This geometric thread was not confined to any single faith. It wove its way across continents, finding another breathtaking expression under the domes of Islamic architecture. Within the sun-drenched courtyards of the Alhambra, a different melody of sacred geometry unfolds. Built in 13th century Spain, this palace complex is a symphony of infinite patterns, where walls and ceilings dissolve into intricate lattices of interlocking stars and polygons. These are not mere decorations, they are profound spiritual statements, using the pure language of compass and straightedge to symbolize the unending nature of creation and the underlying unity of all things. Mathematicians like Al-Khwarizmi, whose name gives us the word algorithm, had earlier systematized the principles behind these designs, providing the geometric rules that artisans brought to life in stone and plaster. Each repeating unit or tessellation fits perfectly with the next, leaving no gaps, a visual representation of a cosmos where everything is connected and whole. This artistic and scientific zenith is crystallized in the Court of the Lions. Here, 12 stylized lions support a fountain, arranged in a perfect circle. This is far more than a decorative motif. The number and circular arrangement are thought to reflect astronomical cycles, anchoring this serene courtyard to the mechanics of the heavens above. The geometric brilliance extends upward into the very architecture. Mukana's ceilings transform simple architectural corners into breathtaking three-dimensional sculptures. These honeycomb or stalactite-like structures are composed of tiny, niche-like cells, each one a miniature vault based on precise geometric calculations. When combined, they create a cascading, crystalline effect that seems to dissolve the solidity of the ceiling, suggesting a gateway to a higher reality. This was a language of form so powerful and compelling that it could not be contained. As merchants and scholars traveled the Silk Road, these geometric principles traveled with them, flowing eastward from centers like the Alhambra. They were eagerly adopted and adapted, their influence subtly weaving into the artistic fabric of distant cultures, from the tile work of Persia to the illuminated manuscripts of medieval Europe. This cross-cultural exchange of mathematical beauty raises a fascinating parallel. How did another great tradition, developed in complete isolation across the Atlantic, arrive at such a similar visual vocabulary of sacred shapes? A colossal stone chariot stands frozen in time, its wheels not meant for travel but for tracking the sun itself. The Sun Temple at Konark, built in 13th century India, is a monumental ode to celestial mechanics, where every line and curve was calculated with divine precision. Its 24 intricately carved wheels are not merely decorative. Each one functions as a sophisticated sundial, with spokes and markers designed to cast shadows that tell the time of day with remarkable accuracy. This radial geometry transformed the entire temple facade into a giant, functioning clock, a testament to a culture that saw timekeeping as a sacred art. The entire structure is a manifestation of Vastu Shastra, the ancient Indian science of architecture. Its layout was conceived as a vast mandala on the ground, a symbolic diagram of the cosmos that dictated the placement of every hall and shrine. Within this sacred blueprint, the proportions were governed by universal constants. The relationship between the height of the main spire, now lost to time, and the breadth of its base was carefully designed around the golden ratio, that same harmonious proportion of 1.618 found in nature and in monuments across the world. How did the builders achieve such flawless execution? Inscriptions found at the site reveal they used standardized units of measurement like the haster or cubit, ensuring that every carved detail and structural element adhered to a single harmonious scale. This created a geometric cohesion that the eye perceives as perfect beauty. The temple's most dramatic alignment occurs during the equinoxes, when the first rays of the rising sun are designed to illuminate the main entrance, flooding the inner sanctum with light. This effect required a breathtaking understanding of solar angles, a precise calculation of the Earth's tilt that mirrors the astronomical knowledge embedded within the pyramids of Egypt half a world away. Here, art, science, and spirituality converge in a single, breathtaking monument, a powerful reminder of humanity's shared quest to build in resonance with the cosmos. This universal impulse to encode celestial order into stone did not stop at the shores of India. It sailed across the sea, finding equally profound expression in the mountain temples of Cambodia. The stone spires of Prambanan pierce the Javanese sky, a Hindu vision of the cosmic mountain carved in volcanic rock. Constructed in the 9th century, This sprawling complex is a symphony of sacred geometry, its main temples arranged in a perfect square mandala with 3 concentric courtyards. This layout is a direct architectural representation of Mount Meru, the mythological axis of the world in Hindu cosmology. The 3 primary shrines dedicated to the gods Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma rise from the central courtyard in a precise triangular formation, their heights and base dimensions governed by proportional ratios detailed in ancient Indian architectural texts known as the Shilpa Shastras. These were not arbitrary measurements, they were divine prescriptions, a mathematical code believed to infuse the temple with spiritual power and harmony. Every surface tells a geometric story. Intricate stone carvings frame the doorways and balustrades, featuring endless knots, perfectly radial lotus flowers, and the multi-spoked chakras that symbolize the cosmic order. This visual language of circles and symmetrical patterns is a prayer made visible, a constant reminder of the underlying structure of the universe. But the geometry of Prambanan was not merely symbolic, it was functional. Archaeologists studying the site have determined that its builders used principles of triangulation, sighting on distant landmarks to achieve its precise cardinal alignment. This careful orientation served a vital ritual purpose. During the solstices, the long shadow cast by the main Shiva temple's central spire, or shikara, falls directly upon specific altars and subsidiary shrines within the complex. This transformed the entire temple into a giant solar calendar, marking the most sacred days of the year with a silent, dramatic play of light and shadow. The timing of ceremonies could be synchronized with these celestial events, ensuring that human worship was perfectly aligned with the cycles of the cosmos. This intricate fusion of mathematical precision and spiritual practice at Prambanan is not an isolated phenomenon. It echoes a universal theme we have witnessed from the pyramids to the pagodas, a shared human impulse to use the language of geometry to bridge the earthly and the divine. From the shadowed temples of Java, we journey to a sun-bleached desert where geometry is drawn on a truly colossal scale. The Nazca Plains of Peru hold one of archaeology's most profound visual puzzles. Etched into the stark desert floor between 500 years before the Common Era and 500 years into the Common Era, the Nazca lines are a gallery of giant geoglyphs, their sheer scale visible in full only from the sky. Yet the creators worked from the ground, crafting perfect geometric forms that stretch for kilometers across the arid plateau. They laid out immense trapezoids, their wide ends and narrow ends defined with clean, unwavering lines. They traced long, straight pathways that run to the horizon without deviation, and carved complex spirals that echo the mathematical curves found in seashells and galaxies. How could a culture achieve such precision over such vast distances without the ability to see their work from above? The answer lies in a sophisticated application of ground-level geometry. Researchers propose the Nazca people used a system of ropes and stakes anchored to central points to act as giant compasses and straightedges. By maintaining consistent angular measurements and pulling ropes taut over long distances, they could replicate perfect shapes on a monumental scale, a testament to their communal understanding of proportion and line. This was not random scratching in the sand. The geometry served a higher purpose, connecting the earth to the heavens. Many of the long, straight lines align with the rising and setting points of the sun, moon, and significant stars on the horizon, particularly the bright stars of the Orion constellation. These alignments suggest the entire desert was used as a vast astronomical calendar, a sacred landscape where celestial cycles were mapped onto the earth through precise angles and lines. The famous spider glyph reveals another layer of this knowledge. Its curved legs are not simple arcs but incorporate the logarithmic spiral, a precise mathematical form that grows at a constant rate, a pattern seen in the very formation of hurricanes and the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower. This implies an observation of natural geometry so deep that it was encoded into their most enduring art. The Nazca lines stand as a powerful reminder that the language of sacred geometry was not confined to towering monuments. It could also be written across the earth itself, a whispered secret in lines of stone, waiting for a future age to look down and finally see the pattern. Across the fields of Konark, thousands of ancient stones march toward the horizon in silent, geometric regiments. Erected over 5,000 years ago, these megalithic rows and sweeping arcs are not a random scattering. They form deliberate patterns, ellipses, and perfect rectangles drawn on a colossal scale across the Breton landscape. This is not architecture in the way we understand it, but a different kind of construction, a vast outdoor classroom of Neolithic geometry. The sheer organization of these stones reveals a community that thought in lines, angles, and ratios. Archaeologists studying the alignments have discovered that the spacing between the stones is not arbitrary. The gaps repeat in a consistent rhythm, suggesting the builders used a standardized unit of measurement, perhaps based on the human stride or on a cycle observed in the heavens. This repetitive ratio turned the entire site into a giant measuring stick, a physical representation of a mathematical concept. The precision deepens in the Camario alignment, where the stones are positioned to form a series of isosceles triangles, a shape with two equal sides and a distinct apex. Creating such perfect triangles across such a vast distance required a shared understanding of angles and a method for ensuring consistency, a communal knowledge passed down without a written language. What was the purpose of this enormous geometric diagram? Many researchers believe the entire complex functioned as a sophisticated astronomical observatory. Key stones and sightlines are positioned to frame the rising sun on the solstice, while others may have marked the moon's most extreme rising and setting points, its lunar standstills. The Konark stones represent one of humanity's earliest and most ambitious attempts to impose a mathematical order upon the world, to use geometry as a tool for reading the cosmos. This fundamental impulse to measure, align, and encode would find another powerful expression far to the north, in the lands of the ancient Scandinavians. Germany's Gothic Circle offers a glimpse into the mind of a Neolithic astronomer. Constructed nearly 7,000 years ago, this simple ring of earthen ditches and wooden palisades is one of the world's oldest known solar observatories. Its circular enclosure is not a perfect ring, but a design of profound intention. 3 gates break the circumference, and 2 of these are precisely aligned. One frames the rising sun on the shortest day of the year, the winter solstice, while the opposite gate captures the sun as it sets on that same pivotal day. This alignment transforms the entire circle into a giant celestial calendar, marking the sun's rebirth with a silent, geometric certainty. The structure's genius extends beyond these solstice gates. The circle is radially divided, its perimeter segmented into arcs that scholars believe correspond not only to the sun's annual journey, but to the more complex cycles of the moon. This intricate segmentation reveals a people who are not just watching the sky, but meticulously recording its rhythms, using the pure geometry of the circle to map time itself. How did they achieve such consistency across this large space? Excavations suggest the builders used a standardized unit of length, likely based on a human measurement like a stride or an arm's length, to ensure every segment of the ditch and the placement of every wooden post adhered to a shared blueprint. This communal standard allowed them to replicate perfect proportions on a grand scale. The Gothic Circle is not an isolated wonder. Its fundamental design, a circular enclosure with astronomical alignments, directly prefigures the great stone circles that would rise millennia later, like Stonehenge. This connection reveals a long and unbroken tradition of geometric observation, a knowledge of the heavens that was carefully passed down and refined across generations. The principles first encoded in earth and wood here in Germany would eventually be set in stone, a testament to a universal human endeavor to find order in the cosmos. This evolving tradition of celestial geometry was not confined to the forests of Europe. As the Bronze Age dawned, these same ideas began to find new and even more precise expressions, etched into the landscapes of other ancient cultures. The cool stone of Newgrange has held its secret for over 5,000 years. This massive circular mound in Ireland, built centuries before the pyramids of Egypt, is a masterpiece of Neolithic engineering and celestial alignment. Its most breathtaking feature is a long, narrow passage that leads to a central chamber deep within the earth. This passage is not randomly oriented. It is aimed with stunning precision to capture the first light of the winter solstice sunrise, the shortest day of the year. For a few precious minutes on that single morning, a slender beam of sunlight penetrates through a special roof box, a perfectly angled slit above the entrance, and travels down the dark corridor to illuminate the inner sanctum. This effect is no accident of nature. It is the result of meticulous geometric planning, a precise understanding of solar angles engineered into the very structure. The builders achieved this with a remarkable architectural innovation known as the corbelled arch. They stacked layers of stone in ever-decreasing circles, each layer projecting slightly inward until the space was sealed with a capstone at the top. This created a soaring, geometric vault without any mortar, a self-supporting structure of perfect balance that has withstood the weight of millennia. The sacred geometry extends beyond the architecture to the art itself. The facade of the Great Mound is studded with white quartz stones, and its entrance stone is carved with a complex series of triple spirals. These are not just decorative symbols, they are recursive patterns, spirals within spirals, whose growth and proportions are based on the golden ratio. This same mathematical sequence, found in the arrangement of sunflower seeds and the curve of a nautilus shell, appears here in ancient Ireland, echoing patterns that would later be celebrated in classical Greek art. Archaeologists studying the site have found that the entire monument is a study in harmonic proportions. The diameter of the Great Mound and the length of its entrance passage follow ratios that may have been linked to the cycles of the moon, turning the entire structure into a grand calendar stone. Newgrange stands as a powerful testament to a universal human impulse, a desire to fuse the earthly and the celestial through the sacred language of geometry. This same impulse was burning just as brightly on the other side of the Atlantic, where ancient cultures were building their own mountains to touch the sky. The earthen ridges of Poverty Point curve across the Louisiana landscape like the whispers of a forgotten blueprint. Constructed over 3,700 years ago, this ancient complex is a sprawling exercise in geometric earthwork. From the ground, its 6 concentric semicircular ridges appear as massive, undulating embankments, but from above, their true design emerges. These ridges form precise arcs, and the radial aisles that cut through them create a series of perfect octagons and circles, a vast geometric diagram drawn not in ink but in soil. The builders executed this grand plan with a consistent unit of measurement, spacing each ridge at equal intervals from the next. This repetitive rhythm suggests more than just a desire for order. Researchers believe these carefully measured distances may have functioned as a giant calendar, with the spacing corresponding to cycles of the sun or the moon, turning the entire site into a terrestrial timekeeper. The geometric impulse extended to the smallest artifacts. Stone plummets used for weaving and finely crafted beads were carved with intricate patterns of circles, lines, and chevrons, revealing a cultural obsession with symmetry and balanced form. At the heart of this geometric wonder stands the central mound A, a colossal earthen structure rising to a dramatic point. The proportions of its height to its base are not arbitrary. They mirror the exact ratios found in the Great Pyramids of Mesoamerica, built centuries later. How could such a specific architectural relationship exist across such vast distances? Poverty Point was a major hub in a continent-spanning trade network. Shells from the Gulf Coast, copper from the Great Lakes, and stone from the Appalachians all converged here. With these materials came ideas, a flow of knowledge where concepts of sacred measurement and cosmic alignment were exchanged as readily as goods. This movement of geometric principles was not unique to the Americas. A similar exchange was unfolding across the vast, open landscapes of the Asian steppes. Silent regiments of clay stand in perfect geometric formation. The terracotta army, created in the 3rd century before the Common Era to guard the first emperor of China, is far more than a collection of individual sculptures. It is a masterwork of organizational geometry, a vast military force frozen in time according to the precise principles of ancient Chinese battle tactics. The thousands of soldiers are not randomly placed. They are arranged in disciplined rectangular battle arrays, their positions within these formations dictated by harmonic divisions and proportional spacing that would have maximized their effectiveness on the battlefield. This was geometry as a tool of war, a calculated arrangement for both visual impact and tactical supremacy. The entire mausoleum complex is a lesson in applied feng shui, with its structures carefully positioned along cardinal axes. These lines of sight and movement were not arbitrarily drawn. They were established using angular geometry to create perfect alignments with sacred mountains and flowing rivers, weaving the emperor's final resting place into the very fabric of the landscape. Historical records from the era describe the use of bronze compasses for orientation and standardized measuring cords for layout, tools that allowed artisans to achieve a breathtaking uniformity. Each soldier, while possessing unique facial features, adheres to a strict proportional rule in their stance and posture. The spacing between each figure, the rows, and the columns all follow a consistent rhythm, creating a visual harmony that is both imposing and orderly. This was geometry on a grand, human scale, used not to build a single structure, but to organize an entire army into a coherent, powerful whole. The same mathematical principles that govern the placement of these clay soldiers would soon find another powerful expression in the urban planning of a rising empire far to the west. Sunlight pierces the oculus of the Pantheon, a single beam tracing a path across the marble floor. This Roman temple, completed in the year 126, is not merely a building but a perfect geometric theorem cast in concrete and stone. Its genius lies in a single, breathtaking equation. The diameter of the Great Dome is exactly equal to the interior height from the floor to the apex, meaning the entire space could contain a perfect sphere. This spherical harmony is the heart of its design, a monumental expression of circular geometry as the ideal form. The proportions deepen further, with the relationship between the dome's height and the supporting cylinder's height following the golden ratio, that same divine proportion of 1 to 1.618 found in nature and in monuments across the ancient world. The engineering that made this possible was meticulously planned. The coffered ceiling, with its 5 rows of 28 square recesses, is not just decorative. Each coffer reduces the dome's weight while creating a geometric grid that draws the eye upward, a perfect application of modular design. The massive portico at the entrance continues this rhythmic precision. Its 16 monolithic granite columns are not evenly spaced. Instead, they are arranged according to harmonic intervals, creating a visual cadence that feels both powerful and perfectly balanced to anyone approaching. This was the practical application of principles documented by the Roman engineer Vitruvius, who wrote that buildings must possess firmitas, utilitas, and venustas, strength, utility, and beauty, all achieved through mathematical ratios. The oculus itself, that 9-meter-wide opening to the sky, serves as the final piece of this celestial instrument. Throughout the year, the beam of light it emits moves across the floor, illuminating specific geometric patterns and niches on significant dates, marking the sun's passage with silent, predictable accuracy. This fusion of imperial power and cosmic order created an architectural language so powerful it would not be forgotten. The geometric principles perfected under the Roman dome were carried forward, influencing the vast, floating domes of Byzantine churches and finding new life in the intricate, mathematically precise patterns of Islamic architecture, a legacy written in light and stone. Hagia Sophia's dome floats on a ring of light, a seemingly impossible feat of stone and mathematics. When it was completed in the year 537, its vast interior space was a revolution in architectural geometry. The secret to this soaring canopy lies in the pendentives, those graceful spherical triangles that curve upward from each corner of the square base. These triangular segments act as a geometric translator, seamlessly bridging the rigid, earthly square below to the perfect, heavenly circle of the dome above. This single innovation unlocked a new dimension of sacred space, allowing the interior to feel both immense and intimately connected. The building's proportions are a study in harmony, with the length of the nave to its width following the golden ratio, that universal proportion of 1 to 1.618. Even the majestic curve of the dome itself is not a simple hemisphere but a catenary arch, the natural, stable curve formed by a hanging chain. This mathematical form gives the dome its incredible strength, distributing its immense weight downward with perfect efficiency. Historical records credit mathematicians like Isidore of Miletus with applying the principles of Euclid to realize this vision, turning abstract geometry into a physical prayer. Every surface echoes this synthesis. Intricate mosaics and later Islamic calligraphy coexist, their interlocking geometric patterns of stars, crosses, and infinite knots creating a visual language that transcends any single faith. Hagia Sophia stands not as a monument to one culture, but as a testament to the fluid journey of mathematical ideas, a crossroads where geometries from Rome, Greece, and the East converge to create something entirely new. This same current of shared knowledge flowing across continents was also shaping magnificent structures far to the south in the ancient kingdoms of Africa. Deep within the highlands of Ethiopia, the earth itself opens into a geometric prayer. The rock-hewn churches of Lalibela, carved from solid volcanic rock in the 12th century, are a breathtaking feat of inverted architecture. Rather than building upward, the artisans excavated downward, carving out 11 monolithic churches from the living stone, leaving behind perfect geometric forms in the resulting pits and courtyards. The most iconic of these, the Church of St. George, is a masterpiece of this technique. From above, its roof forms a perfect Greek cross, a symbol of profound symmetry etched into the ground. The entire structure is a single, seamless block of stone, its proportions carefully calculated using harmonic ratios to create a space of deep spiritual resonance for those who worship within. This was not crude excavation. The builders employed plumb bobs for perfect verticality and sophisticated angular measurements to ensure every facade and interior wall met with flawless precision. The influence on this work spanned continents, blending the architectural traditions of the earlier Aksumite kingdom with geometric principles borrowed from Byzantine Christianity, all filtered through a uniquely Ethiopian spiritual vision. This synthesis is most evident in the overall plan. The 11 churches are not scattered randomly. They are arranged in two main groups, their positions and the processional pathways connecting them forming a symbolic geometric representation of Jerusalem. The axial alignments and the deliberate spacing between the structures create a sacred landscape, a pilgrimage map carved directly into the Ethiopian plateau. The existence of such an advanced and precise complex in a region often considered isolated by geography raises a compelling final question. If this sacred language of geometry could flourish here, what other echoes might we find across the vast, connecting expanse of the world's oceans? A city rises from the reef, its foundations built not on land but on the sea itself. Nan Madol, a labyrinth of artificial islets constructed from colossal basalt logs, floats in the shallow waters of Micronesia. Between 1200 and 1500 years into the Common Era, its builders stacked these prismatic stones in precise crisscross patterns, creating walls and platforms that form a stunning mosaic of geometric shapes. From above, the entire complex reveals a deliberate design of interlocking hexagons and perfect rectangles, a man-made archipelago laid out with the careful hand of a master geometer. This was not just a city of stone, it was a city of angles where every canal and causeway was planned with mathematical intent. The intricate network of waterways functions as a liquid grid, its flow meticulously calibrated to the rhythms of the tides. Building such a system required an advanced understanding of angular calculations to ensure water moved efficiently, flushing the canals and sustaining the population. How did a society without modern instruments achieve such hydraulic precision? The answer is written in the stars. Oral traditions passed down through generations speak of navigators who used the islets themselves as fixed points for triangulation, sighting on specific stars from one artificial island to the next to plot courses across the vast, empty ocean. This celestial knowledge was etched into the very fabric of the city. The royal tomb, a massive structure known as Nan Dawas, is oriented with such accuracy that its central axis captures the solstice sun, a feat that demanded precise geometric sightlines laid out over water. Nan Madol stands as a powerful testament to a maritime culture that wielded geometry as a tool for survival and spiritual connection, a floating proof of the mathematical knowledge that connected all the islands of the Pacific. This shared language of the ocean, used to navigate the greatest expanse on Earth, reveals that the thread of sacred geometry was not bound by continents, but was carried on the currents, linking seafarers across the globe. Within the dense jungle of Palenque, a pyramid ascends in 9 distinct levels, each one a symbolic step toward the heavens. The Temple of the Inscriptions, built around 700 years into the Common Era, is far more than a royal tomb. It is a mathematical manuscript carved from limestone, its very structure encoding the Mayan vision of the cosmos. Those 9 receding terraces represent the 9 levels of the underworld, a spiritual journey quantified in stone. This symbolic count is not arbitrary. The proportions governing the pyramid's height, its base, and the relationship between its levels adhere to precise geometric ratios, creating a visual harmony that resonates with the same universal principles found in distant cultures. The architectural genius extends inside, where the builders employed the corbelled vault. This technique uses overlapping stones, angled inward to form a triangular ceiling, a self-locking geometric form that distributes the pyramid's immense weight with flawless stability. This triangular geometry was their key to creating soaring, durable spaces without the true arch. The walls within are covered in hieroglyphs, one of the longest known Mayan inscriptions. But these carvings are more than historical records. They are numerical codes detailing complex calendar cycles. Researchers have found that the proportions of the temple's interior spaces and the numerical counts in the texts relate directly to planetary periods, especially the 584-day synodic cycle of Venus. This means the temple itself was a physical calculator, its dimensions and inscriptions working in concert to track the rhythmic dance of the planets. How did the Mayan priests achieve such a seamless fusion of mathematics and cosmology? They saw numbers as a living force, the very language the gods used to order the universe. Their most profound geometric statement lies deep within the pyramid. The massive sarcophagus lid of the ruler Pakal is a breathtaking cosmic diagram. Intricately carved scenes show the ruler at the moment of his passing, positioned at the center of a world tree that connects the underworld, the earthly realm, and the heavens. Surrounding this central axis is a complex arrangement of celestial bands, sun symbols, and astronomical markers. The entire composition is framed by a geometric border of repeating patterns and sacred proportions that feel hauntingly familiar. These are not random decorations. They mirror the symbolic diagrams found in Hindu yantras from India and the cosmic maps of Buddhist mandalas, a visual echo across vast cultural divides. This shared vocabulary of circles, axes, and symmetrical divisions suggests a parallel exploration of the same fundamental truths. The temple's final alignment reveals the practical application of this celestial math. During the equinoxes, the setting sun cast shadows across the pyramid's facade in a specific, calculated way. Achieving this annual spectacle required the builders to take incredibly accurate angular measurements of the sun's path, transforming the entire structure into a solar marker. Here at Palenque, the line between a building and an astronomical instrument completely vanishes, revealing a culture that lived and breathed a geometry written in the stars. The baked brick of the ziggurat of rises in precise, receding tiers against the Mesopotamian sky. Constructed over 4,000 years ago, this colossal stepped pyramid was more than a building. It was a calculated bridge between earth and heaven, a geometric prayer aimed at the gods. Each of its massive rectangular platforms was not built to random dimensions. Their proportions were governed by sacred ratios, a mathematical code that gave the entire structure its harmonious, upward thrust. This was architecture as a divine equation where every measurement held meaning. Surviving cuneiform tablets from the era describe how the builders, the Sumerians, used advanced geometry in their planning. They detail how the base dimensions of the ziggurat were carefully chosen to encode numerical values associated with specific deities, turning the foundation itself into a written invocation, a permanent prayer set in clay and bitumen. The structure's perfect alignment to the four cardinal directions was no guesswork. It was achieved through meticulous geometric calculations, using the cast shadows of gnomons, early sundials, and the fixed positions of stars to plot true north, south, east, and west upon the flat plane. This celestial anchoring made the ziggurat a fixed point in the cosmos, a terrestrial counterpart to the orderly heavens. Even the slopes of the ascending terraces were a feat of engineering geometry. Their consistent angles were calculated for both physical stability against the elements and for symbolic purpose, creating a stairway whose very incline guided the priestly ascent toward the divine. The ziggurat of stands as a profound reminder, a testament from the very dawn of civilization to our enduring quest to find order in the universe and to build that order into the world around us. From the solitary ziggurat of to the floating city of Nan Madol, a single geometric thread weaves through 30 ancient wonders. These sites, separated by oceans and millennia, all speak a shared language of shape and number, a vocabulary built from the golden ratio, the constant pi, and the perfect symmetry of the mandala. How could such specific knowledge appear again and again in cultures that history tells us never met? Some researchers, like John Anthony West, have looked at this global pattern and proposed a radical idea. They suggest these similarities are not mere coincidence, but the scattered ruins of a lost global civilization, a primordial culture that possessed this advanced understanding and seeded it across the world. Another possibility is that this geometric code is not something that was taught, but something innate, a shared archetypal knowledge embedded deep within the human psyche, a universal intuition for the harmonic patterns that underpin reality itself. The evidence is written in the stars, from the pyramids of Giza mirroring Orion's belt to the sun dagger at Machu Picchu marking the solstice. This universal desire to build in concert with the cosmos reveals a profound truth. Our ancestors saw the heavens not as a random scattering of lights, but as a majestic, orderly system, and they used mathematics as their tool to replicate that divine order here on Earth. This knowledge traveled. It moved along the Silk Road with merchants, across the Pacific with navigators, and down trade routes like the one that connected Poverty Point to distant cultures. Spiritual beliefs carried it too, as Buddhist monks brought mandala blueprints from India to Java, and Islamic scholars preserved geometric texts that would later inspire European cathedrals. This was a living, flowing current of ideas. Perhaps most astonishing is how modern science is now catching up to this ancient wisdom. In the realm of quantum physics, scientists describe a subatomic world built on geometric relationships and vibrational frequencies. In mathematics, fractal geometry reveals that the complex patterns of a fern or a coastline are built from simple, repeating shapes, echoing the recursive spirals carved at Newgrange. It seems our most advanced models of the universe are confirming what the ancients seemed to know intuitively, that geometry is the fundamental scaffold of existence. This synthesis invites a profound shift in perspective. It asks us to reconsider the narrative of human history as a story of isolated cultures slowly climbing toward enlightenment. Instead, we see a tapestry of interconnected genius, a recurring flame of understanding that flickered into brilliance across the globe. What does this collective achievement reveal about our shared human potential? It suggests that the drive to find order, meaning, and beauty in the cosmos is a defining part of who we are, a universal language written not in words, but in the timeless shapes of the circle, the square, and the spiral. Our journey across continents and centuries closes not with a final answer, but with a deeper mystery. These 30 sites, from the solitary Moai to the soaring domes of Hagia Sophia, are not isolated achievements. They are individual verses in a single, global epic, written in the universal language of geometry. This shared vocabulary of the golden ratio, pi, and the mandala reveals a profound connection among our earliest builders. They all sought the same goal, to harmonize their most sacred creations with the mathematical fabric of the universe itself. In the pyramid's precise angles and the temple mandalas of the East, we see that beauty, spirituality, and science were never separate pursuits, but intertwined expressions of a single human yearning to find order in the cosmos. This exploration invites you to see the world with new eyes. Look for the spirals in a sunflower, the hexagons in a honeycomb, the perfect arcs in architecture. Question the stories we tell about a disconnected past and consider instead a tapestry of shared insight. We would love to hear which of these ancient sites resonated most with you. Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to join us as we continue unraveling the deepest mysteries of our shared human heritage.